when we give this to our students, and we're like, okay, because we'll have.
Now, my wife, I just broke down. I felt.
Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to the show. Who are you? It is January 2021 and it is the second Friday of the year. So the first Friday was on the 1st of January and we are glad that we are in 2021. And it is awesome to be here again. It is nice to be here again to meet with you, to bring you great people who are doing great things all over. You know, we got those people who are really working day and night to do great things. So our guest today is supposed to be coming from Ireland. He will be running a little bit late, but nevertheless, as usual, we always say, you've got to be prepared for wherever it's going to come. And so I was ready for everything because it's 2021. Nevertheless, we have to be moving on. So I thought in the meantime, I could probably, bring up a topic about things that, we are struggling with, especially as we begin the new year. Everybody is putting down their goals. Everybody is setting up their momentum, and there are things that probably you struggled with last year. And there are things that probably from the beginning you've been thinking, okay, how do I get this? And you have 1,001 things in your mind. And that is one thing that we want to, at least this year, as we continue into the year, that we will come to that place where we learn to declutter. So, of course, we put our plans, we put our action items, we have our goals that we want to achieve. But many a times we find ourselves in that motion of we don't know, okay, we begin in the right steps. Then in between, even before the end of the month, we just find ourselves demotivated. Like now, as we were coming to 2021, most of us in most countries, especially in the Europe and maybe in the Americas, we were looking forward to, coming out of the lockdown to begin to enjoy the life and maybe go back to our normal life because the vaccine is already there. But still, things are not changing, and they will eventually they will be changing, but at the moment we're still in that place where we are in a full lockdown, and that complicates even so much about so many things that we have put in purpose, so many things that we have put in perspective, and you find your mind is busy with a lot of things, busy with thinking, so when are we coming out of this lockdown? So why are not they making the right decisions? So why are they not telling us what is really happening? So how many people are being vaccinated? So which vaccine is the right vaccine? How am I going to be doing my businesses this year? How am I going to be meeting my family since I couldn't see them during the vacation? I couldn't meet with them. How all these things are running in your mind. You're going to work. Who is who? You don't know. You have to wear your mask. You're like, okay, so what comes next? And all those things are, cluttering our minds and keep on pushing us away from our purpose, keeps on pushing us away from our plans, away from our goals. And it is important that we begin to find control of our minds. We begin to find things that bring motivation to us. And I know there are a couple of people who have started doing the challenge. There was a very nice challenge that a friend of mine has started, and it was going for 30 days. And one of those days, the challenge was you keep off the news and see, for a week, keep off the news. Don't listen to what the media is telling you. Just stay off and begin to feel and experience that life without all that, all that news and all that information that is being bombarded on people's minds, that is bringing a lot of fear on people's minds. And so that is how you can begin to declutter your mind and ensure that at least your mind is taking minimal, but you also have space to, begin to assess yourself, begin to assess your motives, begin to assess your goals, your purpose, and what you want to accomplish in this year. And we see, especially in our modern life and this busy life that we are in, we are rushed into so many things. Morning, noon, and night, you want to know what is going to happen right now. You want to know tomorrow what's going to happen. What is my future? What is this? What is coming? And, with people who have kids like us, you're like, so where do I take my kids right now? Because, schools are not opening and I need to do this and that. And that is where we need to begin to understand. You need to put a stop and you need to kind of reflect on, why am I having all these overflowing thoughts in my mind? And hence you need to come to that place and decide that, okay, right now I want to concentrate on what is important, what is in my control. And that is, I want to take control of my mind. I want control of how I deal with my family commitments, work obligations, my social life, my personal issues. Try to organize yourself in that you're not doing everything in one score, but you're taking one step at a time, so that you are able to come to that place where you can achieve your goal, where you can create more space for increase, more space for, abundance, more space for clarity, because clarity is the main thing. Once you have clarity, you are able to, function in a manner that you can plan and you can tackle your goals, you can tackle your steps one at a time as you go on. Another thing also, it is very important that you understand that you don't put a number of things to be done at one score. Put, like, you can plan to say, okay, I plan to build my business, whether it is the business plan or my website or my landing page or my adverts. You can say, I want to do them in this week. And you put your effort to do them in that week, and you're able to complete them. And then you can jump into the next, because that way you go step by step also on your list. You're not clouded with so many things. You want to do a little bit of this, a little bit of that, a little bit of that. You're all over the place. So it is important that you're able to do things in a systematic way. You start with one, you finish it, you embark on the other, you finish it, you embark on the other. Also, there is also another thing that we need to learn how to delegate. Things that it will take you 10 days to work on, and there is somebody who could do that for you within a day or two. Why not delegate? It doesn't make you less. In fact, it gives you power to be able to do other things and to accomplish other things as well. So it is very important for us to be designful in everything that we are doing. It is important to begin now, because January is always and like for me, when I look at January, it is already finished. For many, it's just started. For me, it's like it is finished. And so when you look and you plan ahead, you're looking at, what am I going to do next? What is coming next? So that in that way, you are able to keep a stable mind. You're keeping yourself away from, things that will cause you mental headaches, mental problems. And so it is important to follow through in such a manner that you are able to keep yourself sober, present, clear, structural, organized, and you're prioritizing as well. You're not just all over the place. You're prioritizing as well. So those are the things that we need to be looking at, even though we know sometimes it is not easy. But when you begin to implement it in your life, one thing at a time, one step at a time, it will all follow through, because everything we begin, and when we continuously do it, it becomes a habit. it becomes a habit. There is nobody who is better than the other. Everybody learns to do things. I used to think that I would never be able to do certain things like being live, or doing certain things like running a department, or because you see, wow, it is an overwhelming thing. But once you begin to learn how to organize things in a manner that you are able to know, in this moment, it's a time that it is only this moment, and this much is my control, and this much I will be able to do and accomplish, then you do that step by step. Another thing also, it is important for us to learn how to take back our lives in control, because if you're not stable, you're not sober, you're not you're all over, you keep on getting distracted by everything, you can't perform. Instead, you will drown into stress. That is when burnout begins to come in slowly by slowly. And sometimes we don't like to say, okay, I am now tired, I can't do this. It doesn't mean that if you say, I cannot do this or that you're less, or that you're a failure, or that you are incapable. It means that you are appreciating that in this moment, I am not able to accomplish that. And it is well, it is good, it is fine, because it is a healthy thing to learn to say, no, stop. This is now a time for me. This is now a time for me to reflect, or stop. This is how much I can take right now. The rest I can do when I have another free time. So it is important for us to learn how to eliminate stress, eliminate distractions, reduce overloads, because it's not like we are supermen, or we are not superwomen, but we are able to understand that we are just human beings, and we can do and we can accomplish this far. Of course, there is impossible things that we can do, but still, you need to be sober, you need to be present, you need to be available, you need to be there to be able to do that. And so with all these few points that I've just shared with you, I am hoping that you have taken notes, and as I see, our guest has already arrived, so we won't take much of your time, and we will just introduce him, and he will come up, and maybe he will tell us who he is and what he does and why he does what he does. Because what I like about him is the things that he has been able to accomplish, as a business person, as a mentor, as a father, as a husband. He's doing great things. And it is important also in the men's world to understand that as a man, you also can do so much. And if you are open to learn new things and new ways of doing things, you are able to accomplish more. So without further ado, I will bring him up. Hello, Mikey.
Hello, good evening. Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate being here.
Welcome, you're welcome. I'm great that you accepted my invitation, and I'm glad that you finally made it. And it's awesome to know that, the men out there who know that even just a hassle of going to pick kids to school and bringing them can really get you out of your plans and out of your ways. So thank you so much. And
thank you.
Without taking so much time, please introduce yourself. Who are you? And what do you do, and why do you do it?
Who am I? Well, there's a question. That's a very deep question in itself. So my label or my tag is, so I am Pete Lonton, aka Mighty Pete Lonton is my brand. So that's the brand of me. That's who I aspire to be, my own self. What do I do? I am a father, I am a husband, I am a property investor. But probably really a guilty pleasure of mine is being the host of the Fire in the Belly show. And really Fire in the Belly came about only really 2 years ago, really into my life. And Fire in the Belly was when I got to a point in my life of great overwhelm, to be honest, and there was so much going on. And do you know the way sometimes you kind of think, gosh, you're just capable of more, there's maybe just something more inside you there. And my formula was wrong. I had worked, I worked really hard. I was doing everything and conforming to society and everything else, but yet I just felt there was more there. There's more possibilities. And really, it was sort of 2 years ago that the Fire in the Belly story started. And that's when I started to speak to people. And I thought, do you know what? I'm going to start asking the questions. I'm going to start asking people, what it means to them, how they got to where they are today. And, that's what I wanted to find out. It started out as just a few questions, and then it sort of blown into a whole different thing. And when you take the time to actually listen to people, whether it's yourself or someone else, it's amazing what you can actually hear when you listen and listen properly. So that's kind of where I've been on. So it's an amazing journey, and things have just snowballed very quickly. And really the last 2 years now, we've, I've best-selling author in a book that came out there. We co-authored, and my own book is due out now at literally the end of this month. And TEDx talk, we've done over 250 guest interviews. I'm talking in Vegas next year. There's this year now, I'm a year ahead. So there's loads. So it's amazing what you do when you actually decide that you want to try and go and find out, really. So hopefully that helps, gives you a bit of background.
Yes, awesome. Wow. So one important question to you, Pete. What does fire in the belly means to you, and why fire in the belly?
It's a very good question. So, to answer your first question, what does fire in the belly mean to me? Well, to me, it's the most common answer we get on the show. I can give you that. So it's I would ask people the very same question, and generally the answer is passion or a burning desire. And that tells you a lot. So when someone's saying that they're actually, they're doing what they're doing, and they're doing it with passion, they're doing it with a burning desire, well, that tells you a lot about their state. That tells you a lot about their energy. That tells you a lot about where they're at. We speak to so many people, and you kind of go, what do you do for a living? I don't know. Or how do you feel about that? Yeah, it's all right. Whereas you speak to someone with passion or, burning desire, and suddenly they're like, I love this. And it's infectious, right? You speak to an enthusiastic person, and suddenly they're like, wow, this is amazing. And I don't know what you're talking about, but I love it. And I'm enthusiastic for you. And there's so much there. So what I started to do and saying, right, well, okay, I didn't have that fire in my belly at that time. And the questions I was asking myself, why is it that some of us are, we'll roll out of bed and we'll get up and we'll turn on the TV. And yet the next person will roll out of bed or jump out of bed, and they'll go and want to go and take over the world and stand on stage and write books and do crazy stuff. What's the difference, right? We're humans. We're all this. We have capabilities. And that's the question I was asking myself. Is I knew where I was at. I couldn't keep doing what I was doing. I was like that fly going into the window, and I talk about that in the U Squared book. And that fly that just keeps flying into the glass again and again and again and again and again. That was me. I couldn't fly into the glass anymore. My head was sore, and so I knew something was wrong. I had to step back to review my situation, to review where I was at, what I wanted in life. And that's what I call my, I was 37 and a half, and I call that my midlife opportunity. It was a crisis at the time, but I do believe through every great overwhelm comes great change. So now I look back and I say it was my midlife opportunity, and you know what, it was there, and so many things have unfolded since I've actually changed pace, and now I talk about, I would bend the universe in my head in terms of what I'm capable of, as opposed to, I'm very much, trying to. It's amazing what I can do. That's what I'm amazed. So I just keep turning up and saying is, what if I keep saying yes? What if I keep doing more? What if I keep trying harder? What if I, do something new? Well, I may fail, I may not, but you know what? I'm at least going to have a great time trying anyway. So.
So, and it's very interesting how you've said it was your midlife opportunities, and I love the way you've turned midlife crisis to midlife opportunities, because every time people reach a certain age, they feel like, okay, I'm in my midlife crisis. I don't know what to do now. I don't feel like I have passion anymore. I don't know what my purpose is. And like now, in this season where we're still, ongoing in the pandemic, there are people who are still struggling to find their purpose. in this pandemic and thinking, okay, what else can I do? How do I find that? For you, and I know you have a great journey, that you have gone through, and I know your story is very, very beautiful, and I would love our audience also to hear, talk to us about your journey and how you come to, to realize that what people would call midlife crisis is midlife opportunity for you.
I think really, I mean, for me, fundamentally, we're generally, if you want to see the person, the true person, if you like, you generally have to go back to the person when they were 5, 6, 7 years old. That's the point when they were, they had no commitments, they were fun, they were outgoing, they were whatever they were, their true character. Well, for whatever reason, school and life and parents and all that, they come along and then suddenly expectations are placed upon us. But it's kind of quite often at that point, there is a gap between, that gap forms that actually saying, well, I need to be maybe a different person at school, or, that embarrassed me, so I need to do something different. Well, when that then separates of saying, well, I really want to do this, but actually society or something else needs me to be doing that. Well, you take that and you then, bring that forward over through all the years. Well, then there's a gap between who we truly are, the child, the inner child within us, and actually then the person we are today. Now, I have this running theory that this midlife opportunity is when the gap is so big, we actually can't actually see our inner child. And, someone saying, well, what do you want in life? It's like, well, I don't know. How do you feel about that? I don't know. I've got the mortgage, I've got the kids, we've a couple of years knocked off the mortgage, and the kids are okay and life's okay, but yet I'm sitting here and I just don't know what to do. I don't feel fulfilled. My job, and it's boring or whatever it is, and I don't feel any potential, and I feel like I'm capable of more, but yet it's all locked inside me. So that's when you get to that point of overwhelm, because it's so distant and it's so disconnected that actually you lose all values in yourself and everything else. Well, how do you start closing that gap? Well, the first thing is to recognize that, and that sometimes you can ask a question, and even a simple question you asked me at the start is saying, who are you? Well, that to me is, I could talk for 2 hours on who are you? And that's the difference. Whereas, because we're not necessarily a label. My label is, as you put on screen there, my label could be that I'm a father. My label could be that I'm a mentor, or I'm a host. I'm all these different things. It's like, well, but that's not who I am. Me as a person.
Exactly.
So, but I do say to anyone, and the first thing I did, I didn't know. I knew something was wrong. And, and that manifested in different ways. That manifested through in depression, that manifested through in frustration, that manifested through in, all these things going wrong in my life. And it's like, were they going wrong? Or was the universe trying to tell me something? Or, was it my perception that they were going wrong? Maybe they were going right. And I love it now in terms of, people will say, and, it's like maybe things are happening for you, not to you. And sometimes good things don't happen so that great things can. So this is all perspective shift, rather than saying that, gosh, poor me, and I'm stuck in this job, or my life is terrible, and this happened to me and that happened to me, and 50 things. But my turning point, if you like, was I literally woke up one night and at 2 a.m. I was sitting rocking in the dark on the side of my bed. I had toothache. It sounds fairly innocuous, but the pain in my mouth and everything else. Now that was it was symbolic of what was going on in my life. Like I say, we had a fairly, fairly young child that was teething. So was that. I had depression. We were closing down a company. All these big things were all just coming in around me. And the tooth, that's where it all sort of, for me, all manifested back together, and just going, the next morning I managed to get an emergency appointment with the dentist. And against their advice, I said, there's one or two things happening today. Either you're removing the tooth or I am. Now, was it the best advice? Maybe, maybe not. They knew by the look on my face, it literally was. I ended up, that tooth was out of my mouth within the next 15 minutes. I had to sign a waiver because it wasn't against their advice. But that's how bad it got. It was symbolic of what was going on. And that's why I'm saying that was my point of great overwhelm. I'm saying enough is enough. I'm not doing this any longer. I'm tired. I'm frustrated. This is crazy what's going on. I know I'm capable of more, but yet I'm stuck in this pattern. Stepping forward then over that sort of the next, sort of period of years. And that's when I started saying, well, I don't know how I learned. I know, and that's maybe a strange question, but someone saying, well, how do you feel? It's like, well, I don't know. And that's very typical of people who are lost or depression or whatever. They're saying, they just feel numb. I don't feel good and I don't feel bad. I just don't really feel. So that's starting to ask those questions, saying, well, that's interesting. And then saying, well, how do I learn? And ironically, at the time, through this process, I discovered as well that I am dyslexic and ADHD, which was curious. You sort of go, well, because I wanted to learn how my kids learned. And it was so different because all these years I had believed, this is the way I perform best, but it was such a difficult thing for me. I was a high performer in the corporate world, but the problem is it took so much energy for that to happen for me. But then what I learned is, going through and saying, I'm not a strong reader. However, what I can do is listen. So when I figured that out, and I'll listen at high speed, so on Audible, and I'd say to anyone or whatever your listening platform is, I'll listen to things at maybe 1.5 to 2.5 times speed. Suddenly that engages my brains. So I went from reading one book in 5 years to reading 70 books in the first year, or listening to 70 books in the first year. And suddenly when you start asking those questions and then you hear the language and then you start doing this, and then at that point you try and fail. And it's great. The more you try, the more you fail. And that's brilliant because then you learn something. You learn that's not what I want. Okay, so I didn't like that book, and I didn't like that book because of X. Okay, well, I'll read a different one, and then I'll read that, and then suddenly I'm finding my tribe. I'm finding things that make me passionate. I'm finding, and I'm starting to shift and change the way I see things. And suddenly, as you roll that forward, then, now to where I am today, I mean, I get to have some phenomenal conversations with people, both, in terms of the word or, in senses. I've noticed I've become a lot more intuitive, picking up a lot more, being able to, like say, these deep and beautiful conversations with people. And sometimes you don't even have to speak. And it's a whole different level. And it's amazing. I mean, not even sort of 4 years ago, I was an engineer. That was my thing. And I wouldn't have signed up for a lot of stuff I sign up to now, or I believe, or do, but that's amazing what happens when you just give yourself the capacity to say, well, what if, at my 37.5 year, my point of midlife opportunity, I'm saying, well, statistically, I'm nearly half dead, but also I'm half alive. And I'm saying, am I willing to run the second half of my life in the same way that I run my first half of my life? I'm saying, well, what's the worst that could happen? I'm saying, well, yeah, I could do that and I would do okay and life would be okay. But what if I tried to do something more? What if I learned how I learned? What if I read more? What if I met more people? What if I asked more questions? What if I did this? I'm not going to be any worse off, but what if I learned one thing a day or one thing an hour? And that's really where this sort of almost obsession, which is ironic because when I left school and university, I was saying, well, I'm done, burn the building, I'll never be back here, that's the end of it. And now I can't, I mean, I'm buying books, I'm downloading things, I'm doing all this, I'm talking to more people, and this thirst for knowledge and desire and passion. And that's what's come back for me, is that suddenly I realize my passion is where that I can get enthusiastic about this by, my own academy, the people I speak to, and I can quite often see things in people that maybe don't see in themselves. And, they use love language, they use things like that and saying, I'd love to do this. I call it the love but, saying, I'd love to start a podcast, but I don't know how to do that. I'd love to write a book, but my next door neighbor said I shouldn't. I'd love to do this, but I have to pay the mortgage for the kids or whatever. And that love but, you've just kind of, I'm not saying you can step away from it, but just be very conscious of who you are and what you're doing. And that alone can be quite good. But when you find your passion, whatever that might be, and sometimes it's unusual and it's not what you necessarily expect, but when you find that passion, the energy it gives off is phenomenal because you will talk to people. You'll be delighted to come on to shows like your own here and get to share and chat. Whereas possibly before and saying, why would I go onto that show? Who am I? So when you're passion driven, you have this a calling, if you want to call it that, whatever way, and then suddenly you will, you'll do more, want to be more, you want to find out more and ask more. Well, that's great. That's a beautiful way. To me, that's living. You're living with passion. You're living with desire.
Wow, awesome. That is so beautiful. And I love how, there are a couple of points that you've put out there where you said, when you try a lot of things, and even when it fails, it is learning. It doesn't make you less a person you are. You're learning a lot. And also just knowing that you have to be cautious of who you are, realizing who you are, and knowing that you have a passion in you. And you have to awaken that passion in you, because you have to keep on verbalizing it. Sometimes, people have those passions and they keep it inside. That's why it's just inside. But when you begin to verbalize it to yourself, you begin to create that conscious awareness about it. And before you realize, you come to that place where you begin to implement it. And so it is very beautiful how you put those points forth. We are going to take a short break, and when we come back, Mighty Pete is going to give us some tips and tricks, or maybe techniques of how he has bettered himself from understanding his midlife opportunity and being able to achieve what he has achieved till today. Hello, welcome back. This is your show, Who Are You? I am your host, Dr. Leah, and our guest today is Mighty Pete. He's from Ireland. Pete has talked to us about his journey. He has given us already some great insight of how he came to where he is. He has given us a great insight of, how he lived a life where he was also not very satisfied with what he was doing. And there are those times where, you've worked hard for so many things and you see it right in front of your face. It all comes down, crumbling down in front of your face. And from there, what do you do? And he had a point, and that painful point for him was like an awakening time to realize that he has a passion inside him, and if he doesn't awaken it, then he will be actually like a completely dead person. But he realized quickly that he needs to bring it out, and he needs to bring that passion into purpose. And how he did it is very interesting. He has already spoken to us about it. He will now be giving us tips, tricks, or techniques of how best you can also begin to implement that, especially that we are in the first month of the year. It is important for us to begin to learn good techniques of how we can begin to pull up our passions from inside and begin to put it into perspective, because that is who you are. That is how you begin to realize, who are you? Just being a father is not who you are. Just being a boss or just being, wherever an entrepreneur is not who you are. Who you are is the passion that is burning inside you, where you can say you're a visionary, you're a creator, you're a motivator, you are a builder. Those are who you are, and those things come out of you when you begin to put them out there and when you begin to work into them, because then they can begin to multiply and expand. So give us at least 5 tips that people can use, especially in this first month of the year, to begin to understand, themselves, and especially that they can be able to bring out their passion and begin to put it into the right purpose.
Sure. I mean, well, I think probably the first thing is to know that I believe if you have a beat in your heart that you have fire in the belly. That's the first thing, because a lot of people saying, I'm going to go and look for my passion. I'm going to go and look for the fire in my belly. I'm going to look for my burning desire, whatever else. I genuinely believe as long as you're alive, it's already there. Now, it may be in a very small flame in the far distance. It might be roaring, roaring flame within inside you.
Mm-hmm.
So the first thing is just to know that it is inside. It's like Acres of Diamonds, all the beautiful books and alchemy and The Alchemist and things like that. They're lovely in terms of knowing that actually everything you need is within you. So that is
Mm-hmm.
important to know. And I've spoken to people who, they are incredibly rich. Vice versa, I've spoken to people that are just grateful to be alive. So no matter what, it is there.
Mm-hmm.
I think we all love certain things, and look at your traits, look at what you do. Okay, and there's certain things, and it's important to look at what you do and also things that you don't do. So for me, actually learning in terms of, learning how I learn, so being diagnosed with dyslexia, learning that actually using the written word is not always the best way for me to communicate. And that's something I learned in saying, well, how do you like to, read to learn? Do you like to, sort of write, with pen and paper, or do you like to listen? What's your method? What's the best way for you to take on information?
Mm-hmm.
Because when you do that, once you'll start to see patterns, and the more patterns you can look for in yourself. So certainly use the likes of friends and family around you and saying, what am I really good at? What have you noticed that I get enthusiastic about? And also ask the really hard questions saying is, what am I not good at? What are the things that I'm maybe not reliable in?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes they will manifest, and people saying, oh yeah, I really should do that. And that's the next thing I'd say to you is look at your language.
Mm-hmm.
So when other people are saying, yeah, Leah's really fantastic at, podcasting and hosting and all this, but if you want your car fixed, maybe that's not Leah. But you might be keen, but it just might not be your thing.
Exactly.
You can be good at something, but doesn't mean it's your passion. It doesn't mean it's your area of expertise. So the next thing I was saying there is look at your language. So I love language because it's the closest thing we can get to truly expressing how we feel. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
language, even though it's very complex and there's so many variants to it, it actually also doesn't fully do justice to what we feel inside. We try and attach a word or label, and your
Mm-hmm.
perception of a word or label may be different to mine. And
Exactly.
it can be local words or whatever. But I would look, and whenever I speak to anyone in terms of, I talked about the love but, I love to do this, but I can't do that. Or when we use the words and saying, I need to, when someone says,
Mm-hmm.
I want to versus I need to, even the very language that they use there and saying, I need to sounds more forced, right? Sounds like it's something about I have to do it. Well, that
Mm-hmm.
doesn't inspire, does it? I mean, that's, someone else is telling me to do it, or I have to do it for work, or I have to do something else. It's outside of my will and desire. Where someone
Mm-hmm.
says, I want to do something, or I love to do something. Now, if they start bringing the love language, saying, I love to write, or I love to go to work, or I love to speak to people, well, suddenly, and you can see because the smile is sitting on their face from ear to ear. And
Mm-hmm.
suddenly you start to know that, and you realize that you've actually started to tick on their passion project, their fire in the belly, because you'll notice also they get a lot more excited and they get more expressive and they'll talk a lot more.
Mm-hmm.
So you may or may not recognize that in yourself, but possibly the people around you. Is there certain things you find yourself Googling or doing at 2 a.m. that you're not doing it for money, you're not doing it for anything else, but actually that you are doing it because you want to learn something more, you want to be more, do more, have more. So look at what you're good at, also look at what you're bad at. There's certain things when I'm not a detail person, so I'm a creative person, and that's okay. For so long, I would beat myself up and saying, well, I haven't sent that email. Now I realize it's because that's not a natural thing for me to do.
Mm-hmm.
If I want to communicate quickly, then I will speak. I have no problems using my mouth. However, the communication between my head, my brain and my hand is a lot slower, and it's not as natural for me. So saying, well, if that's not your way to communicate, then why not speak? We have amazing technologies out there and things as well. So really, once you start to piece all those together, and then ask yourself the question, if time and money were no object, and I'm not saying ultimate wealth or anything else, I'm just saying time and money were no object, the stress was taken away, what would you be doing? And we can all say, I'd love to go and sit on the beach. Yes, that's great for 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks, whatever. But then you come back and saying, as a human, do you not have a purpose? Do you not have a reason? And when you start to look at that and really ask for it, so I would get any of my clients as well, we do bucket lists. I call it a love list or a bucket list. And it's so amazing that rarely on a bucket list makes, people saying, I want to make this much money. That doesn't appear on a bucket list. What appears on a bucket list or a love list, as I like to call it, are things like, people saying, well, I want to go on, go to the Great Wall of China, or I want to, have dinner with my grandparents, or something, very much more experience-based goals. And, there's much more satisfaction saying, how would you feel if you jumped out of a plane and you can see it going, do you know what, that would be just ticked off my bucket list. And yet you go back and saying, do you still want to earn £2 more a year or whatever it is, or get a new job? And they're like, yeah, I want to do that. So straight away with contrast, I can see you would love to jump out of a plane, but you really want a new job. And you're like going, okay, we have a massive energy shift. So even through the question, you're asking yourself these questions is how you can actually go forward and find that sort of the richness in your soul, that passion, that desire. And once you start to feel it, it's amazing. Sometimes we can't unknow what we know. So when you feel that passion, that desire, well, then you want more. You want to hear more, feel more, do more. Then you catch yourself doing it at 2 a.m. Then you find yourself coming on to amazing, podcasts like yourself and coming onto these shows where we can learn more. Isn't it great? And suddenly you feel more alive and saying, well, I like that. I'll do more of that.
Exactly.
So hopefully that helps to give you a bit of an idea. There's just little tips there for you.
Oh, wow. Wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you so much, Pete. Those were awesome tips. And, they are very practical and very, very well spoken, very simple layman's language, as we call it. Nothing scientific, nothing, grandiose where people will be like, oh, wow, that's such a, a huge thing. How do I come there? It's just very simple things, like looking at our language, how we speak with ourselves, the things that we speak about ourselves, recognizing our strengths, our passion, and those are many things that people sometimes really ignore because they are looking for something big. They're looking for something that, it is out. And I think it's also because they are in competition with other people. And so they are very, very disconnected with the reality of who they are, disconnected with their passion, disconnected with what is really, the purpose for their lives. And very beautiful how you've given us all these, tips and how to be very cautious, just being conscious of, I can do this, I can't do that. And it doesn't mean that it is wrong. It is okay because there is somebody else who can do that, and it is very vital for us to realize that. And, before you even jumped in, I was talking about that kind of a mindset, and allowing ourselves to, learn how to also to delegate things, because we can't be 100% all around. We have to learn how to delegate certain things that, you're not good at. And it's very, very, it has been a very, very good session with you, just the discussion, understanding your journey. And I'm very sure that many people who are, they're really getting it. We have Violet Ongario. She's from Munich, and she just enjoyed, what you've been talking about. She said it's so powerful, and it's great to know that, there are simple ways people can do things. We don't need to kind of, make it so big to make it difficult, and to bring our brains down, and to bring us to that place where we think, I can't do that, because we can all do so many things, but we just need to find the right passion for us. And that is what is all important. So thank you so much, Pete. Thank you for coming to the show. I have been blessed. I am so encouraged, and this was the first show of the year. So thank you so much that you brought great nuggets for us to start the year well and to start the show well. So thank you so much. I know you had a lot of things to do, and thank you, thank you, thank you. So thank you so much to our viewers and those who will be watching our replays. Remember, don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel, because you can always go back and replay the shows, and you can hear what these great men and women are doing out there. You can hear, the techniques and the skills that they've implemented in their lives that has enabled them to be and to achieve, their purpose and to achieve their goals all through their journey. So thank you so much. Until next week on Thursday. We are back Thursday, Friday, and next week we're going to have at least, I think, 3 shows, because we have a lot of people lined up, and we had to do to give special days that we can have also all these people come and empower us and speak to us and pour out their, nuggets unto us. So thank you so much. And until next week, we say goodbye. I am your host, Dr. Leah, and our guest, Mighty Pete. Stay healthy, keep safe, put on your mask, people, please, please, please. We need to come out. Go take your vaccine. When they call you for your vaccine, don't discuss, just go get it, so that we can also come in line, because some of us will have to wait until summer. But nevertheless, keep safe, keep healthy, enjoy your weekend, and until next week, we say goodbye.